Hello, all of my mischief makers. Charles Larita here, of the band Charles Larita and the Mischief, and the owner of Mischief Studios in Pennington, New Jersey. I'm coming to you from the Rat Cave to tell you you're watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohen. Dave, do what you do best, and take it away, my friend.
And welcome to another edition of Guitar Tales. My name is Dave Cohen, and as we do at the beginning of every show, we want to thank our great sponsor, Charles Larita of Mischief Studios. And that bumper he did was absolutely great on a few levels, really. My favorite part of it is his music. We had him on season one, probably the third or fourth episode. He played a little guitar for us. I loved his attitude about music. He was the opposite of Ivory Tower when it came to the instruments he plays. He loves the music. He loves any kind of instrument. And that's a gentleman who could take any guitar and make it sound amazing. And since we've been together, Charles has done something extraordinary. He's released some fantastic music. But perhaps more importantly for our listeners and our viewers, he opened up a three-dimensional, I would call it a guitar community, really. It's a studio in Pennington, New Jersey, and you can use it to buy a guitar. You can use it to record music. You can use it to connect with other musicians. Your guitar breaks, get it fixed over there. You need to connect with other musicians, get that done. If you want to record that great song you and your band just wrote, go do it there. If you want to practice, do it there. Over at Mischief Studios, it's really great stuff. And as we also do every week, I want to thank my dear friend of, I think, about 40 years or so, Scott Guitarist Engel. We get to stare at him during the show. He's in black and white. We're in color because we're cooler than he is. But he does all the magic behind the scenes and very frequently in front of the scenes, including something we'll be setting up in the very near future where Scott and I will be doing some mini shows in between the more customary shows that you've been watching for 4 straight years now. And also keep your eyes open. We're going to have some merch. We'll have some Guitar Tales merch coming up probably in the near future. Now, for tonight's show, this is a really, really special show, and it's an important show. We brought back one of our favorite guests in Guitar Tales history. We could probably show you a screenshot of the last time Thomas Jannarone was on the show. And we had a panel discussion, which is one of the most popular shows we've done, about the ins and outs of running a band, about musical venues and the like. And here's what Tom brings to the table and why we asked him to come back today. He's the most interesting man in the room, literally. So he is a gifted drummer. He is a musical venue owner. He is a musical venue manager. He is an accomplished attorney, and he's an overall great guy. So what we brought Tom here to talk about is something called the law of the band. And you'll see for the second time in the history of the show, I actually put on a blazer. You'll see Tom in a suit. And we're going to talk about the law as it relates to the formation, continuation, preservation, success, and happiness of a band. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
What's going on, Dave? Good to be back, man.
It is great to see you. I see you all the time socially. I love seeing you in a tie, all professional, like we both periodically act.
Don't get used to it.
I know. And a lot of people don't know it. I'm an attorney too. But I do not do what you do, and I don't know enough about what you do. So I'm about to get very enlightened. So thank you.
Listen, you know what? It's, like you said in the intro, I think more importantly than anything is that this is the kind of stuff that all the musicians and bands really need to know. Yeah. It's, there's the fun side, there's the artistic side, and then there's the business side. And that's the part that I would like to dig into and to help these people. I mean, Dave, look, Scott knows these people are our families.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a special place in our hearts. And, being in a band or being an artist, if you're planning to make money, it's a business, period. That's what it is. and it must be treated that way. Musicians have long, treated this this thing called music as a hobby and as art, and it is.
Right.
It is, and it should be. But the sad reality is, when you want to make a career of it, is when you need to put together certain formations. And sadly, the mistakes that these musicians make when they're first starting out, when they're the youngest, when they're most impressionable, when they know the least, are the mistakes that can quite often come back and haunt them.
Right.
And they could end up, imagine this. You finally achieve your dream. You're there. You get to where you want to be, wherever that is in your career. And all of a sudden you realize, I'm making everyone else money. I'm not making myself any money. I mean, that's the saddest reality, is that you actually achieve your dream and you've ruined your dream because you didn't do things right. It's like building a dream home and you didn't
foundation.
The foundation.
Yep. That, what it's like. Do you want to become the next VH1 Behind the Music story?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're gonna end up on TV, but it's gonna be for the wrong reasons.
Right. And it's funny. My dad is a retired engineer. They're all horrible business people, brilliant minds, horrible business people. He had a business many years ago. Great idea. It didn't take off because their brains don't work there. And that's why we're so appreciative to have you come in. I can't even imagine anyone who is better suited than you to give the advice we're about to talk about, because of the multiple hats you wear. You're in a working band. You're with Scott and the Smoking Jackets. You own clubs, you manage clubs, and you have a vibrant, active law practice. We started tonight's show a couple minutes late. You took a legal call because you're always working. So the many hats you wear, I think, put you in a position where you're poised better than anyone I could think of to sort of meld all of these different issues under the legal backdrop where you're thinking about the people you're trying to help.
Well, I've been involved in this business since I was very young. I DJ'd my 8th grade dance, and that's kind of where it started. I've always been drawn towards the artistic community, and as an artist when I was young, not musician artist, but as an illustrator artist, and different things in that realm. And we can talk about left brain versus right brain, and
that's true.
A lot of people say left brain people aren't really the business people, but I'm just saying that's not an excuse. I mean,
right.
I probably lean left brain because I tend to get along with more left brain type people than right brain type people.
Right.
But I had to force myself through school and then to law school, which wasn't even in my plans. So I've had to force myself, and then owning 3 bars, big places. They don't care about your creativity. This is about numbers and
taxes.
Yeah, taxes. All this crazy stuff, which, that's right. Today's the 20th. I'm a couple days late, but we'll get there. Do as I say, not as I do, Dave.
That's right. That's why I farm that out. I have an accountant for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. He's been yelling at me for 2 days.
It's funny. It's scary stuff. So I think you gave us, you put so much work into this, and I could see it. You put all of your thoughts together, and I read it. I think you put it together for us last week, an outline of a really ambitious set of issues. We'll see how much we can cover throughout the show, and we'll turn it into 2 shows if we need to. But I love all the thought you put together so that people don't find themselves artistically and commercially successful and yet unsuccessful in terms of making it all come together and work. So
it's about, what I tried to put together, for you is almost like the building blocks. I don't know that I've read a lot of books over the years about entertainment and entertainment law, of course. And I've been to I was at a wonderful 3-day seminar at Harvard University about entertainment law years ago. But really I've never seen it, and hopefully it exists somewhere, something like what we're talking about, where it's kind of a bare bones structure, how to set up the band. All these other books are about publishing and copyright and all those, which are very important and part and parcel of this. But I think this stuff comes first.
It's clear to me it does. And perhaps let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
You've got. I'll give you the preview. I'll give not you, but everyone else the preview. We have 5 things we're going to work through today. We have setting up the business entity, written band operating agreement. That's so important. Band equipment. Who would think of that? That's a legal issue, but it is. Insurance. We all know it, but sometimes we think of it too late. And then the do's and don'ts about getting employment for your band. It's so nuts and boltsy, but in a band, you're thinking about how cool is this song? Is the bass too loud? Where are we going to play it? But these are the fundamentals. So let's start with the first place you started on your outline is setting up a business entity. Tell us what that's about.
Okay, and if I back up for 1 second for you,
sure.
The reality is, it's really 2 things. It's the business entity, which we're diving into right now,
right,
and it's the operating agreement of that business entity. So the reality is, it's really one thing. It's that business entity and how it's set up, because the insurance, the equipment, that's all part and parcel of that, like you said, that all important agreement of how everything's going to come together, rights and responsibilities of everybody, and what's your future? Like, what do you want to do? Who's in charge? So,
right.
Setting up business entity. These things should always be done consulting an attorney and an accountant. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And,
exactly. Right.
And I always say, contact your accountant. I say it so many times. Like, well, why can't I talk to you about it? I say, because they're like, well, you know about this stuff. Yeah, maybe I do, but I'd rather you talk to a professional that's going to know your ins and outs. Because each entity has different things. I mean, of course, there's different business entities. So let's back. So you got a band, and for argument's sake, for the purpose of this discussion, Dave. Let's say we're talking about a band of 4 individuals. Okay.
Perfect. Right.
And it doesn't make a difference. And the beauty of this, it doesn't make a difference whether they're doing covers. It doesn't make a difference if they're doing originals. All of these things are for everybody. It's for everybody. So
right.
Music format doesn't matter. Nothing matters other than these people are getting together and they're going to make, create, write, whatever music. All right. So the 4 individuals get together, and after this, they're gonna have to say, well, how do we want to operate this? This is a business.
Right.
How is our business going to operate? So it could be, well, it's not going to be a sole proprietorship because there's more than one of them.
Exactly.
So is it a partnership? Well, here's what happens. What people don't understand is that if you don't choose an entity, the law views this as a partnership.
And that means it could flow through, if there's a problem, to people's bank accounts.
Well, yes, but also what happens is then it's called the Uniform Partnership Act.
Okay.
And the Uniform Partnership Act is the law that governs partnerships. So if 4 people get together and they're operating as a band and a dispute happens, they look at each other and they don't know what to do. Well, you know what? In absence of a written agreement, the Uniform Partnership Act is going to tell them the answer. And that may not be the answer that they intended when they put the band together. They
might all be unhappy with it.
Because very often, if not most of the times, all band members aren't created equal. Very often there's a person who put it together. That could be the songwriter, could be the singer. There could be 1 or 2 people that are more or less just gig musicians that come in and out. So how all these things, everything may not be 4 ways. And of course, when you have 4 ways, you have issues with ties and whatnot. But we can get to that in a minute. So then what's the other choice? You have corporations, C corps, which you would never do, or an S corp, which is a subchapter S under a C corp. Right. Those corporations for most businesses, unless an accountant has a good reason why, are antiquated because of double taxation.
Okay.
You get, when you make the money, you get paid corporate tax, and then you take the money out of that bank account for each band member, you're paying tax on top of it.
So is that why the LLC is kind of popular these days?
Absolutely. And that brings us to the LLC, which is the one. I had the privilege of going to law school in Delaware, which is the corporate,
oh my God,
of America.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was learning about LLCs before they were even really popular in New Jersey. I remember I was in law school. I'm like, what? Like, I almost thought they weren't telling the truth. I'm like, why would anyone choose any other business entity?
Right.
So we're going to take this the next step and say, what's going to happen is a band's going to set up an LLC.
Okay.
And what that LLC does, we can talk more about the taxes later, but it's not a corporation. So the way people will pay taxes on that, it's kind of like a partnership, but you have the corporate, you have corporate insulation from liability, assuming a number of things are done properly, and the way you pay taxes is through it's passed through. So each person pays their own individual taxes, which means if you make more money than I do, maybe you're paying more taxes than I am. And it all depends on how everything's set up, whether you're paying self-employment tax, which is typically you'd be doing for these situations at whatever rate,
right.
Your own thing. So the most important thing in the LLC, once you're set up, which these things can be set up online.
Right. They're simple. Yeah.
And if you don't want to take a stab at it yourself, which is understandable, there's services to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I suggest, I mean, I typically don't do it for people because
it's not worth your time to do it.
It's kind of, I don't want to say that. I don't want to sound like that. But it's really not. I don't want to charge a person for the time it takes. And I think it's important that a person learns about it, because every year you're gonna renew that.
Yes.
And every year you're gonna go to the same webpage. You're gonna renew it in the same place you set it up. You could use a legal Zoom or something like that. Just make sure that they're gonna try to milk you a la carte for every last little thing.
I did it when I started my law firm. Not legal Zoom, but I went online and learned it, and it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah. And one good thing about legal Zoom is that, like I say, it's intuitive. You don't need it again.
Right.
But once you set up that entity and, actually, so you decide you're going to use an LLC, right?
Okay.
And you're going to set up the entity. That kind of brings you to the entity. You're going to need a trading name. So the trading name very often would be the band name.
Or it could be like, I was thinking of a cool band name, which would be like Tom Jannarone and the Engels.
No, listen, no one would spell that one right. Engel would have the E and the L backwards. I still can't. And Jannarone would have like 3 E's in it. It'll never work. A band name, maybe we can call it the Crazy Daves. I don't know.
There we go. I'll take that one.
has a better flair to it.
It does.
So, and again, a trademark search is another thing. So you're setting up the band. You say, all right, it's going to be an LLC. You're going to set up the LLC. One of the things they're going to ask, the questions they're going to ask is the trade name of the company. So the trade name is, you use the band's name and you trademark it, which is one thing that so many people don't do. Trademark searches can be done in a very sophisticated way through using attorneys and crazy searches.
Right.
I suggest you start with a very simple thing.
Google it.
You see if a URL is available and you Google it.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple. And you can go to the trademark page and you can do a trademark yourself, or again, there's services that do that for you. Keep in mind, if you have a band name, just because the name's taken doesn't mean you can't use it. What context is the name being used for? If it's another band, that's one thing.
Right.
And certain things you just can't trademark because they're so generic. But that's another whole hour show.
Right.
Is trademarking and what's generic, what's not. But it's one of the things you should be aware of, and you should trademark a name. And that's kind of this LLC, and the trademark really leads to the first issue. You're going to have to start asking some really hard questions. You've got these 4 guys together or 4 girls together or a mixture thereof. And
right.
The question is, who owns what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and the egos.
Who owns a band name? And if the 4 people that start a band may not be the 4 people that make money in the band. It could be many things that switch off. That's why if it's an individual that's putting together a band, he or she may want the LLC to be in their name alone, and then they're going to use other musicians as work for hire musicians, which is something else we'll get into.
Right. Now, I want to jump in. because I want everyone to understand how important what you're talking about is right now. Give us some examples of what bad things can happen if we're covering two related things: setting up your entity, and we're going to lead into the band agreement soon. Give us a couple of nightmare scenarios so people understand this is not like a serving suggestion on a cereal box. This is really important stuff.
Well, it's very simple.
Okay.
I mean, a real life example that leaps to mind was years ago. There was a very successful and great band called Bums in a Park,
Okay.
and Jim Monahan from WNEW was part of the band. They were called Jim Monahan's Bums in a Park, and they got into a dispute with Jim Monahan. He ended up leaving the band, but he owned the band's name, or owned part of the band's name. And I wasn't involved in the legal end. I was a teenager, or not teenager, but I was very young. But at the end of the day, they had to stop using the name because they didn't have full control of the name.
There you go.
So it really is that simple, to where if you don't own the name, you can't use it. I mean, in a different context, where a record label owns your name.
Right.
And that goes to the whole Prince debacle of where, when Prince signed one of his deals, he gave up all of his intellectual property rights, or enough of them that he gave up his name. That's why he released that album under a symbol.
I did not know that.
Yes, he did. Whatever that album was, it's just a symbol.
I remember the symbol. I didn't know the reason, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, and that's why also he was, remember, for a while he was being called as the artist formerly known as
Prince. Yeah. So that was a whole contract. Wow.
Yeah,
and it's funny. He spun it so brilliantly to the press that I just, as a fan, I just assumed he was being an artist, and he was. But
yeah, he was being an artist. He didn't protect himself, and he had to pay for it.
Yeah.
But listen, not many people can pull that kind of stuff off.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, you need to be in control of your band name. And if you're not sure who's going to be a band and who's not, that's fine. And you know what? And I think at the beginning is a great time to have that discussion.
Right.
Potential hurt feelings aside, there's no money on the table at this point. So people are giving up things and negotiating things without having to let go of any money.
Right.
So if the person who brought everyone together says, "Hey, look, this is the band name I came up with, and I want this, and I'm going to keep this. If you guys want to be in a band, I'll split money with you, and I'll do this with you, but it's my band name. I came up with it." And most people are going to say, "Yeah, okay, that's fair."
Right.
But that's why these conversations have to have now, not once money's being thrown around.
And I wonder if they're in Tom Jannarone's office. You're probably sort of informally serving the role of mediator, saying, "Well, that makes sense," and the other band. And this is how it's normally done. If Sally came up with the band name, obviously she's going to own it. Like when you're talking to all the members of the band, I would imagine you could be the moderating force if some feathers get ruffled. This is the way we do it.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. In fact, even more pointed, when I meet with band members, I tell them I am not any of your attorney.
Right.
I'm not acting as your attorney, because when it comes to executing a band member agreement, which is an LLC operating agreement, you can call it a band member agreement, but it's the operating agreement of the LLC. Right. How are you operating this LLC? Well, this LLC is a company. This company is a band. So it's a band agreement. You can call it a band partnership agreement, band operating agreement, whatever you want. But I tell these guys, "Hey, look, I'm not representing any of you individually, because you guys are kind of against each other. It would be a conflict of interest to represent one and not the other. So what I'm doing is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to actually put the questions out there that you guys have to come up with the answers to." So you're right. So I'm a mediator and a consultant, really, more so than anyone. I'll answer any of their questions, but I'm not going to sit down and write that agreement for them, because if the singer says, "Well, look, I really don't want the drummer to have this or have that," I'm sitting down with all four of them, and I can't.
Right. And it's so easy because you could just say, look, I have a fiduciary duty to this great band, the Crazy Daves, as a whole. And just like I suppose in any area of law, if there's money at that point and it's involved, you can say, well, you guys can each lawyer up, but I only care about you guys and you gals as a whole. Yeah. And that puts you in a great situation because you're never in a position where you know, even if one person came to you and you've been dealing with one person, your ethical and fiduciary duty, once you're hired by the band, it doesn't matter who your main contact person is. And that allows you to protect everyone. And it could pull them together, which is great.
Well, I do. What I'll do is once they've either have a lawyer or they've signed, you know, super ass covering releases that, you know, they're not going to come after me,
right?
Waiving any type of conflict of interest. Well, then I'm representing, you know, Guitar Tales LLC trading as the Crazy Daves.
Right.
And so that's my client. My client and my duty is to, my duty of loyalty and everything is to the collective, to the band.
Right. Which is a great position to be in.
Yes.
And I suppose, you know, if we take a tiny side little rabbit trail here, but I don't even know if it's a rabbit trail. So most bands, when they start, have very little or no money, at least coming from the band. Maybe they have it coming from other sources. And from what we just described, your role just strikes me as so helpful and important. And people could do a lot on their own, but I would imagine if they can afford it, it behooves these new band members to at least get a consult with an attorney, even if they don't do everything through the attorney.
Well, you know what I would do, Dave, is because, you know, I legitimately care about these artists.
Yeah.
I would just charge them, you know, $100 a person, and I would sit down with them. I would sit down with them and their parents. I didn't care who it was. We'd sit down at a conference table, and I'd say, "Look, you got an hour of my time. Of course, if it was an hour and a half, I certainly wasn't watching the clock."
Right.
And so that would be a start. And you know, and you want to talk about start. So you got like if it's $100 for a consult, and then if it's like $250 to set up the LLC, you know, then the next thing, you set up the LLC, you do your trademark search, you register a trademark, and you could do that cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I just registered a trademark for Eddie Trunk and Florentine and Don Jameson's new show, and that rocks. And it's like $125 in fees. I mean, as long as the attorneys, of course, can make that a lot more expensive, but that's not very expensive. Then you're getting an EIN, which is a social security number for the band.
It's a phone call if that's how you want to do it, or a quick.
When you're setting up your LLC, you can just go to the next page and you can set up your EIN, which is your tax identification number for the Crazy Daves.
Right.
And now the trademark can get more expensive if you're going to do more than a name. If there's a logo or a photo or a catchphrase, things, you know, trademark wise can become much more complicated. But the EIN's easy. You open up a bank account, which you know, you need $100 or whatever to open a bank account. So really, pretty inexpensively, you can be sitting there at any rehearsal studio with an LLC, a trade name, a bank account, a tax ID number, and the operating agreement. Of course, once that's finished, that doesn't necessarily cost money unless there's legal involved. But you can be off to the races without a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like under $2,500 just to at least get started. Maybe under $1,500.
Sure.
And what you've done, and to me, you've eliminated a whole host of problems. Obviously, life brings problems. Like there's car accidents, there's health and things like that. But this is like, these are problems that you could just head off at the pass. And as I'm listening, and really for the first time as a lawyer talking to another lawyer about these issues, just the consult, especially something that inexpensive, because then that gives you your marching orders as to how to protect the collective, as you called it. Sure. You know, everyone who's in Tom's office now has their marching order. You're going to go you'll do a Google search, see if we think it makes sense to try to get a trade name. Do we have to tweak our name a little bit? You know, you set up, go online, set up a bank account. you get an EIN number, you know?
Yeah. I actually love reading their faces because I'm hitting them with like, and I have a detailed list of things. And I'm hitting them with questions,
Right.
never thought of. And again, let's say the four of them, they're sitting there. And as I'm saying these things, you can sometimes see the eyeballs darting back and forth.
Oh,
like,
I love it.
When I talk about voting rights, does everyone have an equal say? Which again, these things are everything we're talking about right now is actually part of the operating agreement. And voting rights, you start talking about, are you guys all going to have equal say? What about time? And that the eyeballs start back and forth, and then sometimes you can almost feel like who the guy going to not have much say is. But Dave, what's important too is with this is that to make a decision whether your LLC are all again, we're talking about four people. Is everyone a member of the Crazy Daves, or are there two members of the Crazy Daves, or one member of the Crazy Daves, and then the other three people? What happens is they want to hire. What bands typically will do is they'll say there's two. Let's say there's two owners, right?
Right.
And
Glenn Fry and what's his name?
Scott and Dave own the Crazy Daves.
Yeah, let's stick with that one. Yeah.
And the other two people are, you're going to call them independent contractors.
Yeah. Right.
And the reason why you want to do that is because if they don't, they're employees. And now with employees, you're adding another whole layer of business.
FICA, workers' comp.
Yeah. Payroll taxes. You're talking about paying, federal, you're paying that FICA guy and local taxes and, the state, all that other stuff. And that becomes an issue. And that's actually an ongoing issue in New Jersey right now, because in New Jersey, they default to an employee, and they've gone after a number of bands.
Really?
Anyone that's in a band that's watching this knows somebody that's been through it. And a lot of the bands have been around for a long time. The Department of Labor comes after them and says, whoa. These aren't work for hires. These are employees. And that's a big deal.
I hadn't thought of that. And I wonder if you have someone and my work, I did personal injury work for about 8 or 9 years now. I do all malpractice, but I know a little bit about this. And when you talk about workers' comp, very frequently you'll see these law disputes where every single thing about them just reeks of this is an employee, but the employer might say, no, they're not. They're a for hire 1099. And I would think in that scenario, I know as a lawyer for what I do, I wouldn't have the sophistication to figure out how to navigate that so that I'm properly calling someone a 1099 instead of an employee.
Yeah. It's tough. With the IRS, they have, and I'm guessing it's still the same. I haven't dealt with this issue since before COVID.
Yeah.
What constitutes an independent contractor? The IRS at least was calling it the 20-factor test.
Okay.
And what they do is they evaluate the workers to determine whether they think it's an independent contractor or an employee. So it's always important in the band membership agreement that if you put people in there, if you say you're going to be, you don't say you're going to be hiring people. You want to say that you're using this one or using that one.
Yeah.
Employee. And in any agreement you have with the musician, aside from making sure that they don't become part of the band by playing in it, or they don't take any of your copyrights by creating with you, work for hire agreements. Part of that, an important part of that always says that you're not an employee, you're an independent contractor, and they need to sign off on it. And it still doesn't matter, because what happens is the IRS is going to do their own independent thing. But I think you need it. I think you need to say that you're an independent contractor, you're not an employee. We don't have to give you insurance. We don't have to pay. We don't have to take out payroll taxes. We're not liable for workers' comp. So what they do, the way they look at this, the IRS is really in 3 categories.
Okay.
Behavioral control, number 1.
Right. That's the one I'm familiar with.
Financial control, number 2. And then the relationship with the parties.
Right.
And they don't look at any one specific factor more than the others. But what they do is I think what they do is kind of like what a judge does. They kind of know where they want to be, so they'll use each of those factors to try to figure out where to go. And unfortunately, they'll say, well, wait a minute. That you hired that bass player, you told them what to play, how to play it, where to be, how long they'd be there for, when they'd leave, what their volume was, where they stand, what equipment they're using. That's an employee.
Yep.
There was that person didn't have any independent control, the behavioral control that you were speaking of. They did their thing.
They walk like a duck and quack like a duck, right?
But ironically enough, you hire someone to paint your house. You say, I want you to do it Tuesday. Here's the color. I want rollers, not brushes, whatever. And that's an independent contract without any type of argument whatsoever.
Right.
So you listen. It's about, again, Dave. It's the law. It's about making an argument.
It's gray. It's gray. It's never black and white.
We hired the bass player, and that bass player played with whatever equipment they wanted. That bass player wasn't told how to play these songs. We told the bass player that we were playing this song, and the bass player gave us his interpretation of that song on stage, and that was fine. So you have to sadly, you have to play the game.
Yeah. The next morning, that bass player was gigging with another band, or that bass player was working a delivery truck. She does whatever we want her to do, or whatever she wants to do. Things like that. Yeah.
And playing with other artists is another thing that plays into it too.
Right.
The scheduling, it's sadly it would break. New Jersey's trying to get rid of independent contractors across the board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No state wants any independent contractors because they want people that are working to pay taxes to the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, right. I don't agree with it, but that makes sense, at least from an incentivization point of view.
But I think it would. Your average Jersey Shore cover band, it would with all the insurances and everything, it would probably wipe them out.
Yeah.
And I mean, not only would it affect them financially, but I don't think anyone's going to keep up with all the bookkeeping and reporting. No. And then every time something new comes up with how many employers are there and who has health insurance and all these other things, no band is going to keep up.
No, and then it hurts the artists, which then hurts all the non-artists who benefit from artists. You know. Now you said something earlier, and it's one of the probably 8 million subtleties of what we're chatting about tonight, which is so I write a song, and let's say you're my 1099, right? Hey Tom, can you come over here? I just want to hear some drums to what I just wrote. And then you come up with a little twist on it, and that change, it's a little shuffle maybe you come up with. And then that's the one song that hits, but I own it according to our contract. And you say, wait a minute, that what I did to it was partially creating it. Now, how can on the front end, how can the band operating agreement smooth over what could become unbelievable litigation?
In that circumstance, the band operating agreement isn't going to help you.
Okay.
Because you're bringing in an outside musician to write a song with you.
Okay.
But what you need is a work for hire agreement, because what happens is copyrights can only be transferred through a writing. So it's like real estate.
Okay.
Here's my house. There has to be a writing.
I did not know that either. Interesting.
I could say that all day long. I could say, oh yeah, Dave, you know what? I don't want anything. I don't want anything. All you want. And all of a sudden it's a huge hit. And you say, well, wait a minute.
Right.
I was part of that creative process. And then what happens is then the law says that it subsists is the word they use.
Okay.
And if there's no written agreement, it's whoever participated in that process owns an equal part of that copyright. I mean, to make it even sound more insane is you could be writing a great song, the Crazy Daves, and then you have Tom Jannarone show up because your drummer's sick one day,
right.
and and you want to change a couple things, I may have a suggestion and say, hey, let's try it this way.
Yeah.
A different way than the way you wrote. We do it that way. And you say, nah, you know what? I don't like it. And I say, okay. And you go and you switch it back again. Well, guess what? I was part of the songwriting process.
Yeah.
Even though what I contributed was nothing.
Well, although the funny thing is, if I'm your lawyer asserting your rights in that, I say you helped in the process by helping us find our path, even if your job was to say this other path won't work. So,
you're thinking like a lawyer.
Yeah, I can't help it sometimes. Yeah.
And you're right. But those are the I don't know if I used the word unintended at the beginning of this. The unintended consequences of not having a solid foundation.
Yeah.
So what you want, that's part of the ancillary agreements that you need to use to protect yourself, and that's the work for hire agreements. So if there's an LLC and you want to own everything, and these guys are independent contractors, part of the independent contractor agreement would be a work for hire agreement. So that those work for hire, those independent contractors are musicians that are working with you, gigging, and you can pay them however you want.
Okay.
They don't have to be on equal footing. They don't have to be on lesser footing. They can make more money than you. It doesn't matter. What matters though is that you're not, from an original standpoint, you've now not given away any of your copyrights, because trust me, if you end up making it, that's going to be carved up enough. You have to start out with 100%. You can't make any money when you're not starting out with 100% of your copyright.
So that's interesting. So in this example, right, where let's say so if Tom Jannarone is called in to help Crazy Dave and I forgot the Crazy Daves. That's
Crazy
our band.
Daves.
The Crazy Daves. I'm liking it. And we would then have you sign a work for hire agreement before you even set foot in the studio.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then that gives the protection.
Yes.
Okay. Simple. And that's the amazing thing, because again, every single thing Tom is talking to all you about is to avoid the VH1 behind the music sad story where some artist ends up getting completely ripped off or penniless or otherwise hurt. Like Prince even he doesn't even own his name.
Work for, and again, I don't know the specifics of that. I just remember that from years ago.
Yeah.
But work for hire agreement, you could Google that. I mean, the work for hire agreements that I have from your, I mean, they're not even a full page. It's literally a paragraph. The person's waive. It's like back to real estate. It's like a quick claim deed, or a prenup agreement.
I once litigated one of those.
Yeah, what it's saying is that, hey, look, I'm engaging in a songwriting process, but any rights that I have or may have in the future, to that copyright, to that song, I'm assigning back to you.
Yeah, it's
and it's simple, and it's stupid to not have it signed.
It is, and you made me remember something. I once litigated a prenup case where the lawyer and everyone else lost the prenup. They had the unsigned one. So it's reminding me that, so if you go see Tom Jannarone and he gives you this great advice, hang on to the damn paper, right?
Yeah.
Things
are a little easier now.
It's digital,
electronic and everything. Yeah. A fire doesn't usually wipe people out unless the server was in the building that burned, or there's no backups, anything. But it's so important. And again, let me jump kind of back into that band member agreement, just give you a sense of really what it is.
Okay.
So the band member agreement, again, it's a document. I mean, it could be 10 pages, it could be 1,000 pages.
Okay.
And really, it starts out with the Crazy Daves, the members of the bands, and that's where you get into whether it's independent contractors or not. Length or duration of the agreement itself, which is usually perpetual unless there's a reason to stop it. And then you get into what's the band member services. So this goes into what I said earlier. I say, what are the rights and responsibilities of the member of the company? Forget it's a band. It could be an accounting firm. It could be You could be a company fixing asphalt, and who's doing potholes, who's doing driveways, who's doing whatever. So what are the band member services? The recording artists, are they just musical performers for live performances? And then, of course, with the band member services, you can get into, that's the place for, are there non-compete clauses? So non-compete clauses, that's another whole show, because you have to think about that. Because if Scott leaves the Crazy Daves, and
he's been threatening that for a while.
Yes. Yeah. And he wants to start the Silly Scots. You want to make sure that he's not taking everything that he learned from the Crazy Daves and starting the Silly Scots.
So is it as simple as, let's say, like, we'll run with that example. So let's say we're in a cover band as opposed to an original band, and Scott leaves, as he probably should, because I haven't been treating him very well, which I wouldn't do. And he forms the Silly Scots. Can we actually, when he's feeling weak, can I take advantage of him and have him sign a non-compete that says, you cannot be in a cover band in Monmouth, Ocean, and Burlington counties? Or is that considered too restrictive if it's not original music? Like, in other words, can we just...
It doesn't make a difference, the purpose. It could be music, performing, writing copy, digging ditches. Non-competes are based on what's reasonable under the circumstances. So, the purpose of a non-compete is to not hurt the person that holds the non-compete.
Right.
However, it's also can't hurt the person that signed it. In other words, you can't have, if you were to say you sign a non-compete agreement, and there's two things. There's duration and there's scope.
Okay.
Those are the two big things. So the first thing is, let's talk about duration. Is it for 1 year? Is it for 2 years? Is it for 20 years? So the shorter the duration, the larger the scope you're going to be allowed. So if you were Monmouth, Ocean, and Burlington, and Scott lives in Monmouth, he'd still be able to perform, but he would have to travel farther. And due to traveling farther, it makes it more difficult for him. But you know what? But it's out of fairness to you. And he knew that when the employment started. The important thing here is that those really need to be signed. If a non-compete's not signed at the very beginning, there needs to be additional consideration for it.
Yeah.
Meaning, if someone in the Crazy Daves didn't sign a non-compete agreement, once things start humming, you say, "Hey, Scott, sign this." Scott's going to be, "Well, why do I have to sign this?" And you say, "Because I said so." Scott, if you sign this, I'll give you X.
Right.
And that would be legally binding. So if you want to go 3 counties for 10 years or whatever, that may be allowed. Again, it would be based on the totality of the circumstances. But if you're going to go for 10 years or something like that, again, the longer the duration, the shorter the scope. I had somebody try to get me sign a non-compete agreement for 90 miles. And when you're in New Jersey,
that's the whole state.
Forget the whole state. It's New York City. It's Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Where are you going to work as an entertainer if you can't be in? And if you plan on staying in New Jersey, you can't play Jersey, New York, or Philly.
Right.
90 miles. I don't think it reaches DC, but it's probably pretty damn close.
Yeah. It's interesting because in my world and yours, in one aspect of your world, lawyers ethically we're not allowed to have non-competes. So my brain really, and I haven't litigated. I helped out a friend many years ago on one. So it's largely, as I take it, whatever the parties agree to when they agree to it, so long as a court might not look at it some years later and say that was just eminently unfair. Maybe like a contract of adhesion would be the magic language you and I would use. But if it's not considered a ridiculous, lopsided, they forced it down on you agreement, I guess they're enforceable, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Again, it's all based on. It's very difficult for someone says, "Hey, I signed a non-compete. It's for this square miles in this many years." I mean, of course, if It depends on what you're doing.
Right.
And if you're online sales, I mean, that's a whole different thing than if you're a handyman and your garage is in Long Branch.
Right.
There's two different things. So it's all a case by case basis. But the angry cousin of the non-compete agreement is actually in and should be in any band member agreement, and that's what non-band activities are allowed.
Oh yeah.
That's an important part of it. I mean, because like I said, hopefully none of these things matter. But just like professional athletes, they have clauses of what they like ultra hazardous activities.
Right.
You need an athlete to be in good shape and not be hurt. You can bet your butt that in these contracts, there's activities they're not allowed to engage in.
Right.
Because if they do, if your quarterback wants to go out running around playing paintball or skydiving and stuff like that, there's too much invested in that. So the question is, what non-band activities are you going to allow the other people in the Crazy Dave's thing to engage in?
Right.
It may be as simple as, are they allowed to play in other bands? If they are, what extent? Typically, the wording would be like anything that doesn't interfere with
the Crazy Dave's. Yeah.
Crazy Dave's.
Right. And
So again, that's what kind of circles back to non-compete. Is it a part of a non-compete, or is it part of what non-band activities are allowed?
Right. And what you're making me think of now, I think, if I'm 25 years old and I'm starting a band and I've got whatever level of life experience and maturity I'm going to have at 25, which I know for me wasn't a lot, my inclination would be to just grab any band agreement off the internet and just make all 4 members sign, which strikes me as a potentially horrible decision.
Yeah.
Because, perhaps my keyboard player likes to do studio work. Perhaps I like to do studio work. Perhaps, our singer likes to go on Broadway now and then, and we want to foster that. But now that we're enemies and there happens to be some stock language that destroys that for them, it's, I think a lot of folks, it's easy for you and I, a lot of folks who aren't lawyers will say, we just need a band contract. And then I know I'm not a contract lawyer, but I know enough to know you need a contract that fits your needs appropriately, right?
Yeah, and again, let's you're driving home a very, very important point, and let's circle back to where we started.
Yeah.
If you don't have a band member agreement, you do have a band member agreement.
Right.
That band member agreement is whatever the UPA says, Uniform Partnership Agreement says. So, and what that's going to say is all 4 of you own everything equally.
Right.
All right. And again, and so now someone quits the band or gets fired from the band. Now, most people just walk away. But again, root of all evil, success and money.
Yep.
Success and
absolutely.
money.
Yep.
They're not going that easily. And there's countless cover bands. And I of course, I'd never share that information, that have struggled. They've struggled because a band member has left. A lot of times a band member leaves and it's a friendly, and they're like, okay, well, what am I going to get? And they're like, I don't know, another job.
Right. Exactly. And that's a reasonable
No,
expectation without knowing the law, right?
I've been in this band for 10 years. I'm entitled to something.
Yeah.
And if there was no agreement, if they say, well, we have no contract with you. Yes, you do. You just don't know it. Then the other things, within that contract, circling back into that is, there's warranties and promises that the band members are going to make to the organization. Like, first of all, you have to make you have to say, look, I'm not under an agreement with any other band. Therefore, I have the rights to sign this agreement. Number one, conduct.
Yeah.
You can't engage in conduct that would hurt the reputation of the band. Of course, if we were in the 80s and we were Motley Crue or Ozzy, I guess there's really nothing you could do to hurt the reputation of the band.
Yeah, Scott talked about that. Scott sent us a little note about Mick Mars and Motley Crue.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And again, I would love to get get a hold of their contract to see under what circumstances they can try to knock him from 25% down to 5%.
Right.
Who knows? You know what? But they've been represented by Doc McGee. Doc McGee was representing them when I first met Doc McGee back in the late 80s.
Okay.
So, I know that band has got to be put together properly. Who knows? Maybe they're just doing it because, for the same reason that, Tommy Lee thought it was a good idea to throw a bottle of Jack Daniels through the bullet train window in Japan. I don't know. It could just be because they're rock stars and it's something to get all the radio stations to talk about. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, because I think a lot of negative is coming out of that. But anyway, the conduct to hurt the band is certainly something that you have to worry about, because you own a brand. Your band, Crazy Dave's, is a brand.
It is.
And the other things, there's something people aren't going to think about, is Crazy Dave's. It's Dave and Scott. You guys own 50-50.
Right.
So what's to stop Scott from saying, I'm selling 25% of my
subletting his interest, so to speak,
to somebody else and make money on it. And now you've got another individual involved in the mix here.
Yoko Ono.
You know what? You don't want to be involved with that person. It could be you don't like the person. It could be that person's harmful to your brand. You don't know. So one of the things you need to have in there is transfer of interest. Under what circumstances can Scott sell or transfer or gift or whatever his percentages of the band?
Or in intestacy issues, or not intestacy, but testamentary issues, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Are you going to, now be in business with Scott's wife,
right,
or Scott's children?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a question you have to ask. My vote is I'll definitely be in business with Scott's wife. I'm thumbs up on that.
We would both take her over Scott, in all honesty. Yeah.
But you want to be able to control your destiny. You want to be able to know who you're. Right. The other thing we already touched on, ownership of the band name, and the band name. It's really not just a band name. It's intellectual property. Period.
Right.
Name. Who owns that? The logo, the trade dress, and then of course that rolls into the all the issues of copyright, song ownership, the recorded compositions. Who owns these songs? And again, in absence of an agreement, everyone's going to own them.
And there's and I suspect you've done at least a few of these in your career. The perfect real life example is that of a will. I said intestacy, which Tom knows, but others might not. That means if someone passes away without a will. So if you have a family with 4 kids and 2 are estranged from mom when she passes, if there's no will, those kids share equally in whatever money mom left. It's the same exact example. If you don't make the plan.
And sharing the income. That's another one. What's the division of song income? Now, again, this is another 2-hour seminar just on the copyrights and publishing and song income. All right. That's another whole thing. But these are things you have to address that up front. And, if the band sets up a publishing company, which they should, was a publishing being divided, which is different than the song income. Is it equal among all members? Do the writers split the writer's share and the band splits the publishing share? Or is it some sort of compromise system you make up on your own? Right. Which, can be said across a lot of things.
And then there's a practical issue you just made me think of, is if you have a publishing company, then you're going to go down, I would guess, the trademark route again. You'll want to find, didn't Townsend have Eel Pie Records? Wasn't that his publishing company?
I don't know.
But, so you might decide, Noise Network, Scott and I would have this, adjunct recording or publishing company, right? So then you have to go down that same route again, or at least consider it, because now you have your band name, your trade name is here, and maybe you have a different name. Maybe it's out of the 4 members of the band, maybe 2 are part of the publishing company and they bring in a third, so that you don't have mirror populations of each entity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's again, you're getting into another whole company, right?
Yeah.
And then within that publishing company, there's the administration of the publishing rights.
Right.
Who's doing that? How is that set up?
Who's paying for it?
Because
Right.
because let me look. The administration, that word means entering into contracts regarding the songs, making decisions on how songs are used. Look,
Right.
you have a great hit. It's going to be a huge hit, and you decide that your publisher is going to release it as a commercial for a product that you do not like or that you don't think is popular for
Right.
the audience that you are going after in the Crazy Daves. And that song, you're making some money on it because that is now the flagship song for this product.
Okay.
That song's never going to be a hit because every time people hear that song, they're going to think of adult diapers or whatever product it is. They're not going to think about what a great song it is. So that's part of the whole administration part of it is having control of what's happening in administration. The administration wing, you need to control how those things are being, what contracts are being entered into. They also make sure they're collecting the royalties. The administrators a lot of times want to sue the infringers, and then they may be the ones that work with departed members. And so let's say someone leaves the band and they get a small piece because there's some sort of sunset clause. So they may be dealing with paying band members based on whatever piece of they own of the publishing, even though they're not in the band anymore. And of course, bookkeeping and accounting.
Right.
Who's responsible for that? You're putting together the band. Who signs checks? You, Scott, both of you.
That's right.
Who maintains the books? Where are the books maintained?
Who chooses the accountant?
Who chooses
Because there's always issues with that. Trust issues.
All the professionals.
Yeah.
And you know what? And auditing and auditing rights. So you're the drummer of your band feels like she's not getting her fair share, and she says, I want to see the Crazy Dave LLC books. I want to see your books. So that contract should address the rights of members. It could be
any owner, right?
Of everybody, of anyone that's involved. It should break down reporting. Are you going to report the income monthly? Disbursements. Is it going to happen monthly, quarterly, annually?
Right.
You don't know. How are profit and losses dealt with? And I apologize. I'm responding to you with questions rather than answers.
No, this is perfect. It's but I think you're making the point better like that, because every band's needs will be different. And I think one of our purposes, which you're perfectly satisfying right now, is to sensitize folks that at whatever level of success, because everything you're saying now is equally important to the band that plays 20 gigs a year versus a band that plays 100 or 200 or 300 gigs a year, because all of these questions are things that simply need to be addressed in sitting down with each other and saying, all right, this is what we think we want to do. Now let's go into Tom's office, Tom Jannarone's office, and say, how do we accomplish this? And in chatting with you on, say, I'm hearing this about the consult. If I were starting a band, I'd say, Tom, can we come in once every 3 months and sort of touch base with you and have a consult as we're evolving, as we're growing? And then you could help guide them and say, here's the right instrument. That was a no pun intended, but it actually works as a pun. But here's the right instrument to get you there. We need a non-compete for you. But now if you want the non-compete, we really need to change the band agreement, because we want the documents to reflect each other, or to be consistent with each other. And and the funny thing is, as much as the left brains people don't want to deal with this, by dealing with it, you're actually freeing up your left brain to be a creative person, because you have fewer headaches down the road.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to deal with the anxiety of the unknown.
Yeah. Or the fighting.
And anywhere you go, I mean, really, that band member agreement is really it's your Bible. That's your instruction.
That's the word manual I was going to use. Yep.
That's the instruction manual to your life, to your business, and that's what you need to refer to. I mean, the little things that they don't think of too. How are profits and losses dealt with?
Right. Who owes the losses if there's money owed? Right.
Yeah, I mean, how does that work? And actually, what's a profit? What's the definition of a net profit?
Yeah.
You need to find that. Now, the good thing now here, this actually brings up a very important thing that if any musician listening to this, if they can get this one thing, this is the most important thing of a day.
We're ready.
Whether they realize it or not, if you're in a band and your band, you lose money on the year because you bought studio equipment, you did all these things, and you lose money on the year.
Okay.
And you have a day job, you can write those losses off against the taxes you paid in your day job.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And that's important because a lot of these bands have day jobs. So my suggestion now, the IRS says, and I believe they still do, that if you have losses in your business for any 3 out of 5 years, not necessarily consecutive, but 3 out of 5 years, it's no longer a business; it's a hobby.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then you can't itemize deductions because it's a hobby. So my suggestion is, if you're starting up a band, a cover band,
right?
Year 1, you're gonna have the least amount of gigs. Year 2, you'll have more gigs. Year 3, hopefully you have more gigs. My suggestion is, to whatever degree possible, spend all your money up front and buy the things that you need to in those first 3 years, and then you run it at a loss for the first 3 years, so that everything you're buying, you're not paying 100% for, because you're getting money back.
Yeah, you're paying about 66 cents on the dollar, roughly, for that.
So now you're getting money back from your day job because you've now shown a loss in the band. And then after 3 years, of course, you can't do that anymore. Maybe you can again down the road after you've had a few years of making money. But it's just, I mean, it's something to think about. Do you have to do it? No. I just think it's something to think about. And I wish, I mean, shouldn't say I wish I knew it, because I kind of did, but I didn't do it right.
Yeah. Well, life kind of gets in the way from us all periodically making the right decisions. Right. Yeah. But, it's
decision, and that's the word.
Yeah.
Probably what I think is the most important part of that operating agreement: meetings and voting.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
How are decisions made? Is it majority? Is it unanimous? And not all decisions are created equal. So you may want unanimous to dissolve the band. You may want 51% on song selection, or you may need a majority to expel a member. Of course, you can never have a unanimous vote to expel a member unless the person wants out.
Right, that's right. Yeah. And I guess you could have a contract that assigns percentage voting rights. And
I did that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if someone quits or leaves or is kicked out of the band, the new member will be brought into that contract, filling in that, those 18% voting rights or whatever they might have.
Yeah. Well, and typically the way something like that would happen is, if they're going to, and this was my suggestion, I did this. It was a big to-do about voting rights with this original band that I met with years and years ago. And it was very interesting because it was almost like a game of Survivor or something. And they were sitting there calculating about who would side with who and who would have what percentage to get.
All right. 50%. Yeah.
It was very interesting to sit there and kind of be the coach. And what they're worried about is the unknown, the new person coming in. And my suggestion was very simple. The new person that comes in doesn't have any rights. All the voting rights from the departing member goes to you guys.
I love that. Yeah.
And once band, and once they've been involved in the band long enough,
you could jointly decide.
You could assign them based on what it says in the operating agreement about decisions. You guys can decide to give that person whatever voting power that person you feel that person.
Right.
The other question too is, do you set up a pension plan?
Wow.
If you plan on being a long term, there's a very successful cover band that's out there now. I'm not gonna really say who it is, but even though it's a good thing, and they were sharp enough back in the late '80s early 90s to set up retirement. They were saying retirement. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like 20 something years old. And I'm like, who do these guys think they are?
We never get old.
They're setting up retirement accounts.
Right, yeah.
They think that they're rock stars. Yeah, well, guess what? It's 2023. They're still playing, and they're playing because they love it. And their retirements are so great. They were lucky enough to not have to have day jobs, and they're going to retire. On top of Social Security, they're going to have a nice pension, and that's something else to think about.
It is. And then I'm even thinking about the voting rights issue. I would guess you could contract your way into having different percentage voting rights for artistic versus financial issues.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah. I don't like the direction. Scott is too crazy with his heavy metal drumming. I never liked it, and I want to do all my John Anderson poetry crap, and we could have voting rights on that.
A lot of times too, you could have a guy who says, man, I just play bass. You guys tell me what direction we're going to go. I'm just here to play bass.
Right.
And that person may know that they're not the right person to pick the songs. That, there usually is one, maybe two people in a group that kind of understand the direction, because everyone has a different vision. And that's the beauty and the problem with music, is that it is subjective.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
I mean, the keys and notes aside, everything's subjective in how they're used.
Yeah, absolutely.
And dissolution of band becomes a big thing when you're talking about things such as like kind of moving down your list there.
Yeah.
Band equipment.
Yeah.
Band equipment is a big thing that's part of the operating agreement. Who owns the band equipment?
Yeah.
It's, if one guy leaves, I'm taking my PA with me.
Right.
Well, or does everyone have their own stuff?
Well, here's what you're making me think of. 50% of the people in this country get divorced, right? 100% of the people who get divorced without a prenup make family law lawyers a lot of money, right? And what you're talking about here is that this is really a prenup. It's more than that, because it allows you to operate. So it's more than that. But a small piece of it is a prenup where if there is whatever emotions are related to or not related to a band breakup, holy crap, is it easier if the divvying up of the band equipment is a piece of that contract. Here it is in black and white. We can't fight about it. It says what it says. Yeah.
I mean, it's, who owns the house? Who owns the car? Who owns the pension?
Who owns the dog?
Same thing. Typically the suggestion is band gear should be owned by the company, right, and the artists own their individual instruments.
Makes sense.
And that's really, but then you get into other things as the band grows. Yeah. Scott sent me a great thing from Nickelback. I think it was a TikTok.
I had a huge party at my place, and we were going on tour the next day. And so I partied till, I don't know, probably 7 a.m. And there was all these buses lined up and all these trucks. And remember getting out that morning? Mm-hmm. We got out, and I'm like, who are all these people? And our tour manager comes over and goes, all those guys over there, that's your lighting crew. I'm like, who's that? Well, that's audio. Well, who's this? That's pyro. Who's the guy standing right behind me? That's your new bodyguard. It was kaboom. And I'm like, where are we go? How big is this tour? It's like, it's the whole world, Chad. I'm like, the whole world? He goes, yeah, and by the way, it's sold out.
Is that overwhelming?
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of speaks for itself. And all of a sudden, the guy opens his eyes and there's a line of tractor trailers. And it's like, wow, like, this is all my stuff. Like, this is the responsibility. So, the bigger the band gets, the bigger the problems get.
Yep.
If you don't nip it in the bud from the beginning, where you have, now I guess, a lot of times like that, you're leasing things and whatnot. But still, when you're putting together studios, there can be a lot of money in band gear and, divvying up losses because, once you buy equipment to sell it, You know it's going to be a loss.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 times, unless it's like a vintage guitar, which is personal.
Yeah.
But and I would think, and remember, we're talking about artists, right? So then there, we spent a ton of time on Guitar Tales talking about gear. So if you don't have that agreement, people might get attached. Like if it's obviously, if it's just a speaker for a PA, that's one thing. But let's say it's a Hammond organ, right? And the guitar player also plays a little keyboard. The keyboard player leaves, and the guitar player has an emotional attachment to that Hammond because it was built in 1969 or what have you. If that's not in the contract, you're looking at either unpleasant fighting or litigation or a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And if it's in the contract, the person who loses it might be a little disappointed, but it's there. That's what you agreed to.
And a lot of times when things go bad, more often than not, it's because there's no money. And you're going to compound the situation with no money, and you're going to need money to deal
fight.
with it. Yeah. And it's not just dissolution in the band, but it's sort of like when a band member leaves, you need to address a band member that leaves. And is it voluntary or is it involuntary? Were they kicked out, or is it just they decided they wanted to go their own way? You need triggers to say which triggers a person to be kicked out of the band. You really need to have certain things that are black and white. You don't end up in a litigation. How do you? And the other thing too, you're talking about the estate type situation. How do you determine the band's net worth if there's going to be a payoff? If you're trying to get someone out, if they turn around and they say, "Look, you're kicking me out of Motley. You're effectively kicking me out of Motley Crue. What's the band's net worth? I want my 25%."
Yeah.
How is that even determined? Is part of is a big part of the contract.
Right. Is it 3 actuarial or forensic accountants? Is it 1? Who is that forensic accountant? It can't be your cousin,
Well, yeah, and I think it's always important that when you're dealing with someone that's leaving, a lot of times you should put things in advance, like they get X amount of dollars.
Right.
Like, so up front. It's much harder when you're actually a very good point. You're not in front of a judge. What you really want in these contracts is you want to go to a mediator first.
Yes.
And then you want to get a binding arbitration. You don't want to have to go in front of a judge, because this way it makes it cheaper for everybody. But if you're going to go in front of an arbitrator or mediator, you want to be able to say, "Hey, look, here's what the contract says. The contract says the guy left voluntarily, and we're not dealing with the net worth of the band. A leaving member, he or she left on their own accord. They weren't happy. We're giving them, whatever, contractually, they're going to be entitled to whatever they're entitled to.
Right.
If smart enough to do contracts for any type of song, any type of copyright, intellectual property issues. But then there's kind of a buyout. You say, look, you're a departing member. You want out? We're going to give you $1,000. See you later. And let's not forget that non-compete you signed either. So,
right.
I hope you're not going to, approach any of the places we're playing.
Right.
That's important. But, again, the band equipment stuff is not. It's not a small issue, because people forget. I mean, I have stuff in my basement, and
I've heard about your basement.
We've been playing. Yeah. We've been playing down there for, I guess, like 4 years now. Okay. And I constantly say, "Is this mine?" Like, I don't remember if I bought it or not.
There's just so much. In other words,
like, if Scott emptied my basement out and took all the crap, I wouldn't know if half of it's mine, because you don't really remember. Right. You buy it, and that's why it's important too with equipment. And when you have a band, when you buy stuff, it's important, and that kind of ties into that last thing, is the insurance end of it.
Yeah.
If you're buying band equipment, you need to document it, and a lot of people they do. They may take a picture with their phone. You want serial numbers. You want to know where you bought it and how much you paid for it.
Right, and that's for your accountant too. Right.
For your accountant, and then you make a decision. Do you want that warranty? Do you want to buy the $5 item at Guitar Center and then pay $30 for the extended warranty?
Right.
I mean, you know, I mean, sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But what's important is that you know that if there's a warranty, that needs to be properly in the books of the band. So if the PA craps out, you can say, hey, I can bring this back to Lake House Music and they're going to fix it for me for free, as opposed to paying somebody to fix something that's not necessary.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's like a good organizational issue, because in the world, whether it's rock or otherwise, we all know rock is a pretty chaotic world. I'm sure other forms are too. And taking that little extra step and maybe assigning someone to be in charge of it, whether it's your accountant, maybe it's your band manager, maybe it's yeah.
And my suggestion always is to use credit cards.
Yeah, it keeps a good record.
Helps your accounting. It also puts you in a better situation when it comes to disputing a charge if you're buying something that doesn't work.
Right.
But again, the sad reality is most bands horse trade. Who buys a guitar from whom? And PA I got from my buddy, and this one was built, and then that one. So I mean, to each his own. But the point's not lost. You're buying new equipment, you're buying used equipment. It doesn't matter. You should document still. I bought it from, now there may be no warranty, there may be nothing you can do, but at least if there's ever an argument about it, you have it. And, taking pictures of the equipment is also important too. And if you're going to insure the equipment, which I recommend, you're going to need to do all these things anyway. That equipment. And if you buy the equipment for the band, the company, so now Guitar Tales LLC now has assets. Guitar Tales LLC now has a PA, a van, and miscellaneous gear, some amps, a practice drum set.
Right.
These things. You're going to want to insure that stuff. Again, the insurances. You're going to want to insure the truck because if you're using it for band purposes. But what's also important about the insurance stuff is, about the band owning the stuff, is that now, how is that being done for tax purposes? Are you deducting it
for the depreciation?
About that, is it you can depreciate it, and I think like 1/7 of the value over 7 years. So you could write off your taxes for 7 years. You depreciate the value of the equipment.
Right.
Or I guess the itemized description is the other way to go. And I can't tell you what's the better way to go.
But there has to be a way. All that you're trying to communicate is you have to go one of those ways. You can't not do it, right? Yeah.
I can't tell you that. Yeah, I can't tell you the best thing to do. But know what I can tell you? That there's something to do.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah. And then your segue is so great because we started to bleed into the insurance issue a bit. Something I know a little bit. Actually, everyone knows a little bit about that. So obviously, if there's a band vehicle, you want insurance for that. Talk about general liability insurance and what you recommend for folks.
Well, it really starts with business insurance.
Okay.
And although I've never filed or owned any of these policies, ASCAP and BMI, and I think CSAC may or may not, but I know ASCAP and BMI used to have insurance policies for artists, for business interruption. I didn't hear much about that during COVID. I thought I would, but then again, maybe I wasn't reading the right things.
Yeah. There was all sorts of litigation. I didn't hear anything about music or performance related litigation.
Yeah, I don't. So now that business insurance is also within that could be general liability for band related things.
Right.
Now, the vehicle insurance speaks for itself. I mean, whether it's personal vehicles or band or band things.
Right.
A lot of times things are leased, but if you lease it, you have to make anything you're even leasing. You have to make sure there's great insurance. So I mean, look at Metallica. A bus accident, someone dies.
Yeah.
The band's not playing a gig. It's turned around forever. They lose a member. I mean, there's liability there, and
There is, yeah.
If the bus driver falls asleep or black ice or whatever the story is, there's liability. So now let's say it was your bus and it was the roadie driving the bus,
Right.
and the player's killed. Well, you better hope that there's insurance for that.
Yeah, it on top of the tragedy for the person who died, it could wipe you out financially. Like literally, you're done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the general liability insurance, would cover normal things that would happen during the course of operating the band. But the other thing that's important is that if any of the band members have homeowners, own a home, they should have homeowners insurance, because what can happen sometimes, there's conduct, kind of like in the band agreement, there's conduct that's not permitted outside of the scope of things. So if you're singing or playing guitar and your strap on your guitar breaks and it falls into the crowd and hurts someone, or you're singing on the microphone and you kick your mic stand by accident and it falls into the crowd and hurts someone's face, which is impossible nowadays in concerts because you hit the iPhone first.
Yeah, right. And you're so far away, but yeah.
But see, those things would be covered under a general liability policy.
Right, and that's important. And then for ownership of your stuff, remember Rick Derringer had all his stuff stolen out of his apartment a few years ago? I kind of remember, if you read the stories, it didn't seem like he had insurance coverage because everyone felt badly, not just for the sentimental value of his stuff, but the fact that I don't think he could afford it.
It's terrible. You can't. I mean, and even if you get something new, you spend all those years, setting up things the way you want them to sound, and guitars are broken in a certain way, and it's craziness. But let me go back to that general liability real quick.
Yeah.
You drop your mic or you drop your guitar. All right. Well, let's say in a heat of the moment, you throw your guitar into the crowd, or you throw your mic into the crowd. All right. Well, now that may not be covered by the insurance policy of the band.
Intentional conduct.
It's intentional conduct, or it may be considered reckless, and maybe they only covered negligent. Your homeowner's insurance might cover anything other than intentional. So there's a chance that let's say this conduct is beyond the scope of what's insured by the
general liability.
Say the insurance policy says it has an assault and battery exclusion for negligence in the general liability, which I would think they would. And the singer jumps into the crowd and socks someone in the face,
right?
Or maybe he jumps into the crowd and gets into a tussle with someone and hurts somebody to where it's not intentional, where it's considered negligent because he's fighting. Well, homeowners insurance would actually cover that.
Yeah.
Although the band insurance might not. Then you have the gray areas. Let's say you're in the Who and you're spinning your microphone.
That's right.
Attached and it flies. Is that negligent? Is that covered under the insurance?
Is it reckless? Right.
You're
spinning it pretty fast.
Yeah. You know what? That's you don't know. You don't know the answer to those things, or whatever things you're doing. So you need to be careful from the insurance standpoint with that. And it got the crossover to. It's always good to have an umbrella policy on your homeowner's insurance for those.
Absolutely. Yep.
So then, the next question is, is there workers' comp? Right? We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
No employees, you don't need workers' comp.
Right.
But what if someone's injured? And then the other thing too is health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nowadays it's kind of different because you have to have health insurance, or you get what's like $1,000 fine or something.
Yeah.
So, but these are all, again, it's another whole seminar talking about.
Yeah. Or disability insurance you could buy.
What do we've identified? Business insurance, general liability, vehicle insurance, homeowners insurance, workers' comp insurance, and there's more, and that can go on.
And I think the answer is simple.
I don't have all the answers, but No,
but you have the questions.
The answer is
and
simple. The answer is you need to know. Yes. You need to know what it is that you need to get and when you need to research.
Yeah. And to me, all of this, a band that forms in 2022 has different needs in 2023 and 2024. And to me, I would think a working, successful band that's generating income, that is not static, would want to periodically just have sort of just a sit down with their attorney and say, here's where we're at, here's our books, here's these are the 3 different policies of insurance we have. Are our limits enough? We brought in a new member. What do we do? Is there a rider? What do we have to do? But I think the theme that we have today is that, and you're fulfilling it perfectly, is you cannot be in this business, right? That was the wrong way. Business. There we go. I don't know why I did fist. I did fist bumps, so that didn't work. But you can't just be an artist. If you're going to be in this business, you have to think about some practical issues. And what we've been chatting about is the fact that the law intersects with many, many things in our lives, and the operation and the happiness quotient of a band is dependent upon how it interacts with the law. And then we've got one more item here. So the do's and don'ts of obtaining employment for your band. What are some of the issues there? It's too much. That's a whole 2-hour seminar.
Now you get into the fun stuff. First of all, at the business. So then really the next question is where do I find this information? Is it just from an attorney? If I don't want to hire an attorney, how do I get that information? So I've just recently started doing entertainment stuff for, years ago. And then I kind of took the direction. I was doing a lot with professional wrestlers, some comedians and things like that. And I really wasn't doing much on the music end. And now I've kind of steered back. So I said, all right, well, what's relevant and what's not relevant, because it changes so much. And, the big publications, This Business of Music and Cohen on Licensing. What I forgot was that some of these books are $600 a piece. And they are, they're legit legal treatises, and they all end all. So I started doing a little research and put together a little library at my home of things that were more relevant and easier to read for the end user.
Okay.
And I stumbled upon this one book. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. And I have no stake in this. I don't know. I don't know anyone from this book. I bought it on Amazon. The Plain and Simple Guide to Music Publishing.
Okay.
So Randall Wixson, and there's a great foreword written by Tom Petty. And this book, it was done in 2020. So it's still a relatively recent with digital issues and the 360 deals and that stuff. But this is very plain and simple. And if you read after Tom Petty's foreword, there's an introduction. There's like a 4-page introduction. And if you just read the introduction, that's really all you're going to need. I mean, not all you need, but that's all you need to really ask yourself all sorts of questions. And then you read the book, and it goes into a deeper with great detail.
And it looks to me that the book is probably a pretty manageable, maybe 200 pages or so, compared to like a 600-page treatise or something.
Yeah, right? And you know what? You definitely win Nerd of the Day, because the book is actually 202 pages. I'm not kidding. With the index is 209 pages. So
when I computed in my head, I never include the index. All right, so I have to do definitely 200 pages. Definitely 200 pages. I do a Rain Man impersonation. So what I like about this is that you've pointed out for everyone just a real clean document that they could buy on their own. That, like you said, they don't have to spend $600 for a book, and that allows people to educate themselves. And you said, I think you mentioned that there was an introduction written by Tom Petty or a forward, but then you said the introduction in 4 pages, it sort of summarizes why everything we're talking about tonight and we've decided we'll probably make a 2-part series is so important to not ignore, right?
It's, you know what, it's $24.99, and that's a hardcover new. I'm sure you
Yeah.
could find it cheaper if you wanted to buy it used. But yeah, Dave, with this book covers is the music publishing aspect, which we teased it because we had to talk about it.
Yeah.
But most of the people that are listening to it kind of know what it means, but not exactly. So if you take all the things that we talked about today,
right,
and you put that solid foundation together for your band,
yeah,
and you set up an operating agreement, and you take into all the considerations that we've outlined, and you take that knowledge and you read a book or books like the one I was talking about,
right,
you are going to be miles ahead of everybody else, and you're going to have a real understanding of what you're doing, that is going to guide you, potentially depress you, but it's going to guide you forward. And it's better to know the trail that you're heading down and know what twists and turns is going to be, rather than just running blindly down it.
I like that. I like it a lot. And that's a great segue. So, we've covered so much, and we have a topic you and I have chatted about. It is truly a topic in and unto itself, which is the do's and don'ts of obtaining employment for your band. You've got off the charts street credibility for this, because, we've had you on the show probably, oh my God, 3 years ago maybe. And I know from chatting with you personally and on the show, you've been in this business since the 80s, right? And
yes.
Hiring bands, hiring entertainment, negotiating contracts.
Yes.
When
I was in college, I played in the band. I was a DJ. I was an MC.
Okay.
And I started hiring entertainment when I was in college, probably about 1986. That was
Wow.
the original Smoking Jackets. So I was obtaining employment for my band then. I was hiring for that place, for the college bar.
Right.
Now gone. And then when I got out of college, rather than going the professional route and going to Manhattan and being a good PR professional like all my classmates did, I ended up working for the late and great Art Stock.
And we've talked about him. He's a legend in New Jersey.
Absolutely a legend. And
Yep.
it was a pleasure and joy of my life to work for him, to learn the do's and don'ts of the business.
Yeah.
And Art, he was just such an innovator and such a great and colorful character. He told everyone that was his son. And very quickly, I was hired as the PR guy to not just work the clubs, but to be in charge of promoting and doing publicity for his farms, the Jersey Shore Basketball League, the Birch Hill Swim Club. He had another place in Rochester. He had horse farms in Ocala, Colts Neck, Wall. So I was kind of the guy giving the keys to the castle to promote all these things. And then he very quickly realized that the things that I was able to do instantly for the bars, for the Birch Hill and the Playpen,
right,
made some very big differences. And he said, you don't forget all that. He said, you're running these places. And so here I am at 20 something. I'm booking national acts. I'm dealing with the major labels. And very quickly I went from, booking myself and hiring college talent at a pub in college to dealing with national acts.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was baptism by fire. I did have great guidance and a great mentor, and there's a lot of experienced people around me, and it never stopped. I started the famous Birch Hill Teen Nights. I started those when people were like, and I was booking national acts every week for the Teen Nights. And then moving forward to Bar Anticipation, and then I've just helped out so many other rooms and consulted and helped find entertainment. And I also booked the entertainment for the Ocean View and Seaside Heights, which is a place that I'm also one of the owners of.
And let's just pause for a second. That is a beautiful facility. Relatively soon after you opened it up, Scott and I went over there and we're just so impressed with the venue. And the most important piece of it was the people. But holy crap, the physical plant itself, as you can see from this overlay here, is gorgeous. But the people, you have really good people there.
Thank you. It's very difficult these days.
I bet it is. Yeah.
And then from the live entertainment standpoint, the Wicked Wolf in Philadelphia, that's all DJ driven, and that's brand new. We just opened that. John Sullivan and myself are opened that, and the Ocean View. My partners at Bar Anticipation are not involved with those two places, but the Wicked Wolf is a crazy place in Center City, Philly. That's all DJs and MCs and different characters. The Hamburglar, the Eagles robot. So a lot of variety things that I've kind of dabbled in. I shouldn't say dabbled. I've booked everything from aerial artists to fire eaters, male review, female review, every kind of band imaginable, singles, duos, trios, specialty acts. And it's been a pleasure. And it's really what got me back into playing again, was just being that all my years as being, being an attorney and being a bar manager, then owner, what scratched that itch, that would scratch that musical itch, was being in the middle of it and being part of it and booking it and working with people. And then it just got to a point where I couldn't scratch that itch with involvement anymore. And I had to literally dive back into and start doing it. So now not only am I booking, I probably book 500 acts between DJs, MCs, and bands, probably 500 bookings I do a year.
Wow.
And as well as, that doesn't count, bookings for the Smoking Jackets, for my own band. That's another thing. So I do have that experience from both sides of the kit, from the drum kit, as I would say.
I like that. I like that expression. So let's take a little dive in as we hit our last topic of the evening. So what are some of the things from a legal point of view that bands really have to keep their eyes open for the do's and don'ts in terms of getting gigs?
Well, I don't know that this is a legal discussion, Dave.
Okay.
Because I don't really, quite frankly, I don't think that people are out there looking to get their band book care.
Right.
You're going to get, one of the, I'm trying to think of an instance that would be absolutely illegal, aside from bringing in band members that are under 18.
Okay. Right.
Or having illegal drugs on stage or things of that nature. I don't know what would really be illegal. These do's and don'ts, to be clear, is, again, I should have changed the hat on. I apologize, but really, I'm taking the lawyer hat off and I'm putting on the buyer hat.
I like it. Okay.
So, and I've been buying talent longer than I'm a lawyer. So I've been a lawyer now 26 years.
Okay.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I've been a lawyer for 26 years, but I've been booking entertainment for a lot longer than that.
Okay.
So speaking in, and not just from my personal experience, but, one of my closest friends is Kyle Brendel, and, who books a Stone Pony. And we laugh and chuckle. I've been out to dinner a number of times with Tony Pellegrossi, and we just laugh and chuckle about the stories of things that have happened, things that people do. So really the do's and don'ts stem from over 3 decades of being, again, I wish I could have recorded all of these things, these messages that were left, long before email. Left. I wish I saved them because they're a classic. But let me start out by saying the most important thing, and let me frame it like this.
Okay.
Let's go back to where we were to begin with. This is a business. This is a job. This is getting a gig is a job interview. A job interview. So if you take everything that I'm saying and you flip it, and it's you not as a guitar player or a singer, it's you as an accountant, it's you as a human resource manager, it's you as a painter, and you are trying to obtain employment. These are the same things that you need to know.
Exactly the same. Right.
I shouldn't say number one thing, because these really aren't these really are in order of importance.
Okay.
It's of whatever falls into my head
Right.
is do your research. Do your research. It makes me insane, the emails that I get from people and the things that they say. And part of doing your research is, number one, know your room. Know who you're talking to. All right? Knowing the room means, what's the music format of that room? All right? What are the promotions and specials that they do? Is there a cover charge? Is there not a cover charge? And part of that, I'll finish and we'll circle back.
Yeah.
Who's in charge? And who's in charge of what? Who are the right people to talk to? Who are the wrong people to talk to? But what's crazy is that I'll get these emails from these bands in formats that are completely irrelevant, something that I would never even consider doing. And it's obvious that these people are just throwing it out there. And that's all they're doing. It's mass emails.
Right.
Throwing bites.
No one's going to bite when you do it like that. Right.
Yeah. We do an all original thrash metal. And then they send me, three paragraphs of the shows they're doing in Hell's Kitchen. I'm like, well, like why?
Right. Yeah. That translates beautifully to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah. And if you want, you have to target, you need to target your message. So let's say it's not an obscure thing. You want to come in and let's say your band is maybe not the exact format that the club does. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Go in and say, all right, at least know something about the room. Say, hey, look, I noticed that you guys have a Thursday, and your Thursday, it doesn't really seem like you have any real format in mind. How about this? I think it would be great. You guys don't charge a cover, and you guys do. I see you do the Miller Lite special for $275. What if we came in and we called it a 70s night, and you charge a nominal cover charge, it would cover our fee. And of course, you're directing this to the right person,
right? And you're saying we have a great we have a great social media presence, and we're going to bring some people in the door for you.
And that's part of it. But so research, know who you're talking to, and know something about the venue. If someone comes to me and they start talking to me about bar anticipation and or emailing me and they're talking about bar anticipation to me and they know what they're talking about, I'm going to keep reading.
Right.
I'm going to keep reading. And probably the first thing I should have said is really the second one here is be professional.
Yes. Being
professional means with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Personalize the emails, for Christ's sakes. Not your talent buyer, to whom it may concern. Personalize these things. And you know what? Spelling, grammar,
absolutely,
syntax. Yes, it matters.
How about this? How about if you cut and paste something, make the font match in your email and not make it look like a ransom note?
Well, and you know what? I see that all the time. Well, obviously, this is the part that they changed. And many of them don't. I mean, for Christ's sakes, there's software out there that'll change the names. Yeah. I mean, a lot of email programs will do that. It shows absolutely zero motivation. Yeah. And you know what? And maybe it's me, but when someone sends something to me, and there's no periods, no commas or anything, I think less of the person.
Yeah, you should.
I think that I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, because it most likely doesn't mean they're unintelligent. It means they're too lazy. And that communicates to Tom Jannarone that they're going to be a lazy person to deal with in his venue.
Well, right? You're 100% right again.
Yeah.
It's one of two things. You're either so stupid that you don't know any punctuation and everybody knows some sort of punctuation.
Right.
Or you are so lazy that you think that your communication to me is so unimportant that you're not going to do it.
Right. And I mean, how does that make you feel when they don't give a crap about, that's like dressing like crap to a job interview. It's disrespectful to the person you're with.
You know what? And what I like to say about how important a comma is. When someone said, "Oh, who cares about that comma?" I
Right.
say, "Well, you know what? You know why it's important? Because there's a big difference between let's eat, Grandma, and let's eat, Grandma."
That's right.
Right?
I was
So
trying to think of one of those. That's a good one. Yeah.
you tell Grandma how important that comma is.
Yeah. It's a matter of life and death.
Yeah, and you know, when you're making,
Yeah.
and the other thing too is trying to make personal contact with somebody is important. I'll
Yeah.
never forget, I was at Birch Hill, and back then I was getting literally, the mail guy was dropping off milk crates of cassettes.
Wow.
And of course, if I got a CD, I was like, whoa, these guys are like, they're highfalutin.
Yeah.
But really cases. And there was no cell phones. And I mean, I had a car phone, but
Yeah.
I would spend hours and hours, and I did listen to them. But a lot of people would just blindly send in stuff. And a band that I ended up later managing and became great friends with, this band called Turnstiles.
Okay.
Joe Bazzone, the lead singer, and Rob Cash, who's now he's also an attorney and a restaurant owner.
Right.
He has a number of restaurants in Freehold area, great places, the Metro, and I forget the other places. But those guys came. They found out. They did their research. They found out when I'd be at Birch Hill. They found out who I was, and they walked up to me, the two of them, dressed nice. I mean, when I say dressed nice, I don't care how you dress, but you're going to meet someone to make an impression. Don't go there, looking the way Scott does right now. Although but anyway, and he came up to me and he shook
He's
my
mugging
hand.
it for the camera right now behind the scenes. We're looking at him.
I'll never forget. JB said to me, Joe Bazzone, he shook my hand. He looked me in the eyes, strong handshake, and said, "My name's Joe Bazzone, and I'm in the band Turnstiles, and I want to tell you why my band will be perfect to play at Birch Hill." And you know what I did? I say, "Come on, let's talk." And that was great. And then once you engage a person in that conversation, it's important. Part of the professionalism aspect is, for Christ's sakes, read a person's body language.
Yep.
I mean, we each can do it to different degrees based on the type of life we lead and skills that we have. But if you can tell that a person is really not interested, either change your approach or
give up
or leave it alone.
Yeah.
Your approach is probably a good way. And then the last thing I'm going to say about being professional is a method of communication. What you should do, and this is kind of part of the research goes back to, and I think they all kind of circle back to research, which is why I put it first. What's the preferred communication for the decision maker, not you?
Yep.
I don't care what you want to do. I want you to communicate with me the way I want it done. I prefer emails because I am on the phone so much that I can't do it anymore. My ears, my voice, and I work a lot of crazy hours. So I'll be reading emails when everyone's asleep and I'm working late. And then if you send me emails with links and things, it gives me the opportunity when I'm reading the email to check out what you're saying. And
when you're ready to review it.
And I'm going to circle back to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I can't review or examine or judge the veracity of anything you're telling me if you're just saying it to me and I haven't had the opportunity to review anything first.
Right.
So I think that's important. And if you keep calling me, I have people to call me and say, like, this is your last chance, and they're pissed. They're like, wait a minute, it's your last chance. We're going to go somewhere else. And it baffles me. They don't realize that I can't call everybody back.
Right.
Possibly. When things become a certain volume, you can't call back the no's. You just can't. You can barely call back the yeses.
Yeah.
And so let's springboard from that into the number three. Number three, do.
Okay.
Sell yourself.
Say that again.
Sell.
Yeah.
Sell. Sales. Life is sales.
Yes.
If you want to go on a date, if you want a job, if you want anything, you've got to sell yourself.
Yep.
And when you're selling yourself, the question is, why you? Why do I want your band? Why do I want your
Yeah.
duo? Why do I want your single? What's special or different about you? And the answer may be there's nothing special or different about you. The answer may be I have a solid product and we put a lot of asses in seats. And here's where the fight happens. The fight between the business musicians and the musicians. I've always said, when that whole entitled class came around in society, I'm like, oh, musicians had that for years. I was dealing with that for years because there's a lot of musicians that feel entitled. They feel that you are obligated to book them, and you can go on any group chat and any chat room or any strength or faith, and they will just bash talent buyers in rooms. Sometimes it's deserved, but the overall tone is, we're not there to bring people. We're artists. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. AC/DC wouldn't be AC/DC if they played and no one showed up. It's about asses in seats. Cover bands, original bands. Original bands, you better sell records or you're out. Cover bands better bring people or you're out. Now, look, when you reach a certain level of notoriety and success, you're gonna be put in better situations to where maybe it's a holiday and the room's already gonna have a good head start. So you're going to be entertaining people as well as bringing people, and that's where the good get better and the bad tend to fall off.
Yeah.
But it's so important that you understand that. And no one's trying to rip anybody off. It's a business, and everyone's trying to do what makes dollars and cents.
And it's putting food on people's tables. Like that's, artists can be artists and artists should be artists, but at the same time, they have to be mindful of the fact that there's people dependent upon them to eat, literally.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely like, you remember Murph and the Magic Tones. They didn't just get their first gig. They had to work for it.
Right.
It's, explain to the talent buyer why you a good fit for the room.
Right.
I get that all the time. We're a great fit for Bar A. Okay. Don't say you are. Why? What makes you think you're a great fit? Tell me. Maybe I'll agree. Maybe I won't agree. But don't just say I'm a good fit for the room.
Right.
Explain that, because maybe there's something that I don't know. And the other thing too is social media numbers, mailing lists, text lists. They all matter. They definitely matter. And I actually didn't realize how much they mattered until we meaning the Smoking Jackets. We got a number of gigs because I had some talent buyers call me and say, "Oh wow, you guys have a really strong Facebook following."
You really do, by the way. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. But my thought process is, you don't care how the band sounds, and a lot of times they don't.
No.
Hey, these guys bring people.
Yeah.
And
it's certainly the name of the game today, right?
People can make money, and the promises of money with social media numbers works. Now, the new thing now is people are like putting influencers or quote unquote influencers in bands. And they're saying, I have, 14 million followers on Instagram or TikTok. Well, yeah, you know what? That's great. But if you take that 14 million and you take out the fake accounts, and then you take out the how many people are under 21,
right?
People geographically make no sense. You take out how many people just don't go out.
There's 7 left.
And how many people that live close enough to go to the venue? How many people actually want to go to the venue? And how many people are available to go somewhere that night
and spend money once they get there?
That 14 million, disappears pretty quickly.
That's interesting. I never knew about. That's kind of like the who are the two brothers in the Fight Game now?
Dana White?
No, the two influencers. Jake, Logan Paul, and Jake.
Yes,
yeah. They did something crazy to the Fight Game, but that's a different world because that's pay-per-view.
That's different because you don't have to leave your house.
Yeah.
That's I'll call it a consumable.
Yeah, you're right. And
the people that liked, I mean, you're on the computer. The same vehicle you're using to like that person is the same vehicle you're using to see what that person does, to consume their products.
Right.
It could be a physical product. It could be their entertainment show.
Yeah.
It's the same vehicle. And that person's in tune with that.
Yeah.
And closely related to that, the next do is have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Or selling yourself. How will you promote the gig?
Right.
Is there something special that night that you do or you want to do? Show me, don't tell me.
Right.
With everything. So if you and back to the whole selling, the selling part is you come in with that plan. What's your plan? Here, hey Tom, here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I see you have an opening on a Thursday night, and your format's typically classic rock, but I have this group that's a little heavier. It's leans more towards Def Leppard and AC/DC and stuff like that. So it's a little heavier, but here's what I want to do. I want to turn this into a rock night, and I have this group of people and that group of people from Facebook that aren't interested in that kind of music. We do this kind of special with this type of vodka. I've got someone that's going to support it here or there. I mean, I'm being very, very general here.
Yeah.
But coming with let me tell you right now, to me as a talent buyer, the idea can suck. But the fact that you're coming to me with my band, we're a good fit. You're saying, no, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to do it. Let's do a theme night. Let's do an 80s party, and we'll do an 80s. The band will dress in 80s. We'll play all 80s music. We'll give away Rubik's cubes, and we'll do all these things. That's great.
Because what's great, even if you don't like their plan, that you could work with them and say, you know what, I don't like your 80s idea, but maybe we have line dancing if you guys, or what have you. But that you could work with them because they're ambitious enough to even have a plan.
Because they have an idea.
Yeah.
They have an idea at all. They have a plan. They're not lazy. And then another one of the pet peeves of mine that I actually find funny is, I always say, show me, don't tell me.
Yep.
And when you're marketing your band to anybody, not just talent buyers, but to your fans, provide great visuals, action.
Yes.
Don't put your high school yearbook picture up there unless you're doing it for fun. All right, great action visuals, videos with crowds.
Yeah, I know. You see the empty room. Yeah.
God. I get, probably 2 or 3 a day I get. And of course, right before summer, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And people, they send me videos and they'll actually take the time. Like the video will be titled "Killing It at Bob's Ale House,"
right.
With 13 exclamation marks. And you click on the link. You're like, oh man, this might be a band I miss. You click on a link and there's 5 musicians. They're not on stage. They're not on a stage, which is fine. So it's a small room.
Yeah.
So it's a little pub. It's like an MJ's or a small place. And someone's taking a video and they're leaning against the bar, and there's not one soul within 10 feet of the bar. The rest of the bar, there's people, but right in front of the band, there's nobody. And then the best part is when someone pans to the crowd, and there is no crowd, and the bartender's leaning against the wall. And the band's playing, and the band, listen, some of those bands are really good.
Right.
Nobody's there. And, all bands have bad gigs, but this is, you chose to send that to me. This is your best representation of
That's
you.
their billboard.
So all I can assume is this is as good as it gets for you.
Right. I know. That's
this is one of your best songs, and this is one of your biggest crowds.
Wow.
And it baffles me that, first of all, did they actually think it's good, and secondly, they take the time, to send that.
I know.
It's crazy
because they're focused on the fact that I played that lead really well, or the vocals were good. They're not thinking about it as business people. They might have some pride in the quality of the musicianship, losing sight of the fact that while you might care about that as a musician, it's much lower on your priority list as a talent purchaser.
I can guarantee you this.
Yeah.
Talent purchasers care about what the people want, not what the musicians. But
Right.
I guarantee you, what the musician thinks is important about that recording is the least most important thing to the person that's watching the band playing. It's like the whole mistake thing. No one knows, no one cares. But as long as we're dancing and having fun.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then for the fifth thing, and it's potentially the most important thing, if you're in the business, cover band, original band, build relationships. Surround yourself with people, fellow musicians, talent buyers, bartenders, servers, the guys at the door, sound engineers. So, you know, you go to gig to gig, you get, because you know what? People aren't static in the business. That door guy may be the guy that's booking a talent the next time. Be the owner of the bar the next time,
or someone whose feedback they care about.
Absolutely. Fellow musicians.
Yeah.
You get in good with other musicians. Musicians are probably my favorite group of people in the world. They really are,
for good reason.
And, they do care about each other, and some of them have a weird way of showing it, but they legitimately care about each other, and they always help each other out. I've had so many bands refer the Smoking Jackets to a place that they play.
Right.
Doesn't help them because it's another mouth to feed, and there's only X amount of dates, and they're referring because of a relationship that was built between either me or someone else in the band and that person in the band, and then it's reciprocal because we referred them. I think that's real important. Or if someone gets sick, you know, hey, we can't do the gig. You get on the phone to call the next guy. I could tell you this, and he might even be mad for me saying it, but I don't care. You know, Brian Kirk, who you know we all know, Brian Kirk, who's super successful, top of the food chain in New Jersey. He does so many corporates and privates, and he can't keep up the weddings he does. Brian has a list. And he doesn't even know that I know about his list. He has a list that he gives brides and grooms of other bands. And I've seen the list. And there's probably, I don't know, 10 bands on that list if memory serves. And it's like these bands all are in, I don't know if you call it competition with Brian, but
they're competitors, even if they're not in competition.
Yeah, but you know what? But there are people that would be in line to get that gig before they asked him. And rather than him just saying, sorry, we're not available, he refers, and you know what, listen, that's class. Yeah. That's class. And you know what? And if you had the relationship with Brian, you'd be on that list. And that list would turning into money. And listen, a lot of talent buyers sometimes by default know nothing about talent. It's just a person. It could be the manager that's just hiring somebody. So who do they listen to? They listen to the bartenders.
The people, and the people they like, and the people who show them respect. You know, like all the natural human interactive traits. Only one of which is the music. Yeah.
And what's the thing you hear most the band say? Don't forget to take care of your bartenders.
That's right.
And you know why? Right. And think about it. There's bands out there. I guarantee you, 99% of the bands out there that say that don't even know why they say it, other than that they heard someone else say it and it sounded cool.
Our whole lives we've heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, but why are you doing that? You're doing it because the bartenders are typically the most important people in the organization, and the bartenders are going to say to the manager, "I love that band. When are we having them back?"
Yes, exactly.
And that's the way they're getting rebooked, because they're building a relationship with the bartender through money. Yeah. And you know the acts that tip the bartenders too. I see it. I hear it. Oh, these assholes walked out on their tab. I hate that band. They could have been the greatest band.
Yep.
You know,
absolutely.
They could have been the greatest band, great, and they didn't tip the bartender. All of a sudden, they suck.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The last big do, and the don'ts really tie into the do's.
Right.
But when you're booking, you might be patient, have fun. when you go
That's
out
the
to a
most
place,
important thing you could say right now. Right. That's beautiful.
if you go to a place like for example, let's say you go to the Wonder Bar and you want to go see Debbie DeLissa and you want to get booked. And first of all, if you did your research, you know that she's a family type person. She runs a great organization. She's there. She's there all the time. Boots on the ground kind of person. If you go there and want to talk to her, and she's one of the approachable people, and speak, she would talk to you, and she says no, an initial no, or tells you to get her at a different time, or not yet, or whatever, anything but an unequivocal yes. Don't just walk out the door. No, you do. Sit at the bar, order one of their great burgers. They do have a good burger there.
Okay.
And a few drinks. And then, you know what? Show up another day. Say hello.
Yeah, you're part of the family.
Say hello to her. Don't say anything about your band. Say hi, Debbie. I'm Tom Jannarone from the Smoking Jackets. Just thought I'd say hello. And you sit down. You have a few drinks. You put the band's name back in her head. Now you're a patron. Yeah. Now the third time you walk up to her, she may remember your name, but now you've built that relationship with her, and you're going to be talking to her. Her level of trust of you is going to be totally different. So if you say my band is really good, she'll believe you. You'll also tell her you believe in her product, you believe in her club, you like her place, and you can only do that from being patient and having fun.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's the advice. How about the dark stuff, the don't stuff?
Oh, let's hear a couple of those.
It's not really dark. It's just stuff that really aggravates me, and I'm sure it aggravates everybody else. Yeah. The first don't is don't try to be everything to everyone. Right. It's hysterical, and I think the record is like 18 formats. They'll say we play rock, country, soul, blues, Latin. I think one day I counted 18. Wow. Different formats. Or we're all professional musicians. We can play any format. That doesn't help me. No, because you maybe don't play every format. Yeah. But I can tell you right now, if you play every format, you don't have a following in every format. No, and you're not going to fill the seats in every format. You could be the greatest musicians of all time, and you may, but it's not going to help me. Yeah. Here's the other thing that aggravates me. Don't number two. Don't make the purchaser do all the work. Yeah. I get emails that say, I'm looking to book my band, or I'm trying to get down the shore, or we kill it in New York and we want to add Jersey to our rotation. If you're interested, check us out, and they leave a link to their webpage, and you got to search. You have to navigate the whole thing yourself. Right. So now I'm doing no introduction. No, if you want me to click on a link, tell me what it is. Say, here's some videos, here's some audio, here's some photos. So at that point, I know what I'm getting into. It's not just 5 unpunctuated words in a link, because I'm probably not going to click that link. If you check us out on Facebook, leave a link, or here's our Instagram. You have to make it as easy as possible, because if I have to work for it, I'm not going to do it. And the worst thing, I get people saying, are you looking for bands this season? If you are, get back to me and I'll send you our references. Or I swear to God, they'll say, I'll send you, if you're looking for bands, get back to me and I'll send you a press kit or an EPK or a digital press kit, whatever, whatever vernacular they're going to use. But people literally will want me to get back to them, and then I have to get back to them for them to send me their information. And you're not going to do it in reality. I mean, could you imagine you go into an interview, you're out of accounting school and you go to some big accounting firm and you know nothing about the accounting firm, and you go in there and, what are you looking to do for the company? Anything, whatever it is, I can do it. I can go to my website. What are your references? Well, you know what I'll do? Let me get back to you on that. Right. But no. And to say the things, I hear it all the time. I don't know where they got. I get that with resumes from. I mean, I've hired thousands and thousands of people, and on these resumes, I don't understand the references available upon request.
Just give me them now.
Give me the references. Because I'm not going to go back through 300 applications and ask everyone for the references.
Right.
If you have good references, wouldn't you want them?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe you're trying to keep your resume to one page. I get that. Well, guess what? Have another page that's your references.
Yeah.
So if I get through your resume, I'll look at your references. To say upon request, you lost me.
Absolutely.
Number three, don't be pushy.
Right.
Don't be pushy. A lot of times, especially if you catch a talent buyer, especially if it's at a show or at night when there's work going on, that talent buyer has a lot of things going on at once, and he or she is probably not blowing you off. They may not have time to talk to you.
Right.
So don't be pushy. Look, persistent, energetic, enthusiastic. Those are all great. Those are all great traits. You know what? I see your. I would love for one of these days for someone to say, I see you're busy right now.
Yes.
Instead of talking to you, when's a better time for me to come back? Or I'll come back later. I see you're busy. And you know what? Hang out, have a few beers, be patient.
Yeah.
And you know what? At some point, when there's a break in my action, if you approach me professionally, and you have a plan,
right.
And you know what I'll do? I'll circle back to you, and I'll come up to you at the bar,
right,
and say, "Hey, man, sorry about that. What do you got?"
Yeah.
And I'll talk to the person, and even if I'm not interested, maybe I'll have a drink with the person, building that relationship.
It's all about relationships.
And here, and the next one is one that, and there's only two left, really. I mean, there's probably a million, but for the purposes of this, the one that kind of bugs me is, it's kind of like in life. There's two kinds of people, I think. The kind of people that go out and make things happen and better themselves through actions and doing things.
Yes.
Then there's the other type of person in life that gets you by tearing down everyone around them and trying to climb on the bodies of everyone they tear down around them. And I love the former. I hate the latter.
Yeah.
That negativity I run from.
It's a bad way to live. It's bad for all of us.
Years, and it made my life so much better, and I wish I did it sooner.
Yeah.
So don't come to me and trash the other bands.
Yeah.
Don't come up to me and say how much better you are than the other band. I've had guys that legitimately say to me, "You have this band playing at Bar A. I saw them here 2 weeks ago. And you know what? They really suck, man. That band's terrible. We blow that band out of the water." So first of all, what don't you know? Well, first of all, it's all subjective anyway. So you may not like the band, but you don't have a relationship between me and that person.
Right.
If they're playing, odds are they're playing because they're doing well.
They're doing something right.
Something right, because there's only one thing more important than the booking, and that's the rebooking.
Yeah.
So that person, could be playing there for years, and they're a staple. And we all know that the best bands aren't the best followed bands very often. It's the fun bands is what people like.
Yeah.
So anyone that comes to me trashing the other bands, first of all, no one likes a rat. If you like, if there's something about the band that's not good, oh, this guy's a cokehead or that, and I don't want to hear that. I don't want to be part of your drama. All you've done is alienated me with your negativity, and you're never building relationships with anybody.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think that the last don't. There's a whole other do's and don'ts once you get the gig that, that's another whole show, but
right.
Don't make false promises. In other words, don't lie to get the gig. I mean, look, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Yeah, I get it. That's marketing 101. But don't straight up make false promises. If you come to me, a lot of bands, they overpromise me, and then they quickly realize that I've been doing this too long to be overpromised.
Right.
A person come to me and say, "Hey, look, we want to play on a Thursday, and we're going to do, we're gonna bring at least 400 people. We have a huge following. In summertime, the following is going to be even bigger because all of our friends go down the shore, and we're so great that our promotions are so strong that we do 400 people everywhere we go. And you know what? Summertime, Bar A, we're probably 500 people." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And all right, so you'll do 400 people. All right. Well, how much you want to get paid? Well, we want $1,500. In the meantime, I'm like, these guys aren't going to bring anybody.
Right.
I look at the videos. 16 people have watched them. They have 37 followers on Facebook, and and 32 of them are their direct family.
Right.
They're from way out of the area, and I know they're not going to do anything. So I'm saying, all right, you know what? So you're going to do at least 400 people? Absolutely. I said, would you do 400 people if I charge cover? Oh, yeah. In New York, they charge $10. I said, all right, well, how about this? I'll make you a deal. You guys sound so good. I want you to make more than $1,500. Are you willing to make more than $1,500? Absolutely. $1,500. That's our introductory price. That's our first time price in. No, and Dave, this is a conversation I've had multiple times, and I had it as recently as 4 days ago.
Right.
And I said, well, here's what we're going to do then. You're going to play for the door. I'm only going to charge $5 so you can promote it even more. So we'll charge $5 at the door. You figure between the reduction in price, I'll throw a drink special in. Between the reduction of price down to $5, the fact that it's Bar A in summertime, you're going to do at least 500 people. So I don't want to give you $1,500. I want to give you $2,500, and you're going to take the door. Oh, well, we don't do door deals. Well, why not? So you can't do 400 people? Well, first time in, man, I said, well, would you do at least 300 people? Oh, 300 easy. Okay. Well, then there's your $1,500. And it all comes crumbling down.
Yeah. And now they don't have a friend in you and all the people you know.
Because they're not willing. And guess what? I've done that deal. Right. I've done that deal where I say, okay, you don't believe, if you have faith in what you're doing enough and you want to show me, I'll promote my ass off. I want it to be successful. I'll promote my ass off. If you want to take the risk to make extra money, I would never cap a band and say, I want you to make sure. I've done a lot of door deals and still do with certain bands, and they walk out fat cats, way more than I would ever pay them because it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
They'll do a show, and I give them the opportunity to make extra money. But making false promises is going to get you anywhere, because you know where it got that guy? It got him on my shit list forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm never going to book his band.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
Because it's not someone you want to work with either.
No, because they're lying. And then their reputation is ruined.
Yep. Yeah. Right out of the gate before they even play for you. And they won't play for you.
And I actually have had some delusional people.
Yeah.
Say, all right, we'll play for the door. And then it's terrible. And then they're pissed off. Right. And like when I do a door deal like that, I always make sure, as an aside, that someone from the band collects money at the door rather than someone from the bar. Because too many times it's been, well, we got a lot more people than that.
Yeah, we don't trust you.
Yeah, that's not happening. But I mean, I've had people, and then they always had an excuse, as to why it was so slow. I'm like, look, you know what? But it's a missed opportunity for me and for them, because I could have had a band that had a better following in rather than that band.
Yeah, it's a loss all around.
Yeah, it doesn't do anyone any good.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was absolutely fantastic. You lived up to the hype. You wear so many great hats. I said at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again, you're the most interesting man in the room, except for Scott and I. But
the way I'm losing hair, I'm going to be wearing a lot more hats.
Oh, you're an amateur compared to me. Look at that. I'm the professional hair loss guy. But thank you so much, Tom. This was wonderful. Yeah, we're going to chunk this up. We have so much great information here. You're a busy lawyer, you're a busy bar owner, you're a busy musician. So we really appreciate that you took the time out to do this really comprehensive show. And this is what we were putting together probably for about 5 months now with you. So we truly do appreciate it.
No, listen, it's my pleasure. And you know what? It's great. It's great when Scott sends you an email and says, okay, we're doing it this day and this time. I'm like, all right.
You're in. That's right.
Well, you do it. You have to do it.
We have to do it. We don't say no to Scott.
Scott had a plan.
Yep.
Yeah. The reputation, and he put it in action, and he did. He nailed me down and said, we're doing it.
He did. He studied at the Thomas Jannarone school. That's right. He's dancing. We were looking at him now. He's dancing in the green room. So, which is for our show, it's the gray room. But okay. We do appreciate it, and we don't say no to Scott. So, speaking of that, I want to thank Scott Guitarist Engel. He works so hard. For those of you who enjoy our show, and the numbers are really growing a lot, it ain't me, it's Scott. He works so hard behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. He's been editing nonstop. Every time my dog barks, he mutes me. And then when it sneaks through, he has to go on the video. So you won't have to hear all the dog barking that Tom and Scott had to listen to tonight, because by the time this airs, Scott will have edited it out. He promotes it. He helps keep everyone informed. So Scott, I appreciate you. 4 years on this journey together, and I really do. So it's wonderful stuff. Stay tuned for more Guitar Tales. We're going to ask you to do one more thing besides watching us. Please subscribe. It helps us get more listeners, which allows us to bring more great information to you guys. So on YouTube, on Facebook, any other medium, just hit subscribe. It's not that hard. You go like this. See,
Press
Tom could do
button.
it. It's all you have to do. Press that button. That's all you have to do. Look, Tom could do it. If Tom could do it and I could do it, you can do it. And then, of course, you'll benefit a little bit from it, because that gets you notified when we have really cool stuff going on, like Tom Jannarone. So thanks again, and have a great evening, everyone. Take care.
I'm number two. No, I was the second. That's right. I was the second one. The second on Guitar Tales, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching it right now. I'm Big Daddy Ed with the Amish Outlaws. I gotta go back to work. Here we go. Guitar Tales, watch it!
Hi, this is Dave Cohen, host of Guitar Tales, and
Scott Guitarist Engel.
So we put together this show every week for you guys, or at least every other week. We want you to do two things for us, which would be good for everyone. If you could subscribe on our YouTube channel, that would be great. And
share. Please share the videos around with your friends. Let them know Guitar Tales is out there. It's not just about guitar players. We have a lot to offer.
Thank you.